Hello and welcome to TSK F1. My name's Rich and this is your daily dose of F1 news. Today we're going to be talking about Lewis Hamilton taking a little bit of a dig at Bernie Ecclestone. Also, Max Verstappen's fashion brand getting told a big no. What else we got? Toto Wolff speaks about his exit plan, and the big story of the day really was that quotes came out yesterday from Bernd Maylander, the safety car driver who has been the safety car driver for Formula One for many, many years, talking in part about the Abu Dhabi 2021 controversy and what he thought at the time. So please do make sure you're hitting that like button and also subscribing to the channel down below in the bottom right hand corner. But let's get into the stories, shall we, guys? First of all, we have got Lewis Hamilton. Now, we've just got some quick fire stories really in the start of this stream because I thought, I found them and I thought I'd just bring them to you really quickly. And he was talking about Bernie Ecclestone and, well, sort of. He didn't name him, but he close enough did. He was talking about how things hadn't moved within Formula One for years. And Hamilton said there wasn't any change or movement until 2020 or 2021. The last couple of years is where you're starting to see some sort of change. When he's talking about like equality and diversity within Formula One. And he said, but before that, I was the Lone Ranger and I couldn't really talk on important subjects as it was just to be, oh, you're the angry black man. It was difficult and very narrow, a very narrow path to walk and a very lonely path to walk. I have to say, I believe Lewis Hamilton and I believe that Bernie Ecclestone would have said that to him directly. I think he would. I think he would. I don't really have much more to say. I think Bernie Ecclestone would very literally have said to Lewis Hamilton, you're just an angry black man. And given the stuff that Bernie Ecclestone has said after Formula One, I think it's, I think he would have said it. And I think to be honest, I know for some reason people get annoyed about Lewis Hamilton and things he says and the causes he brings attention to. But more often than not, when I see him interviewed, he just seems like a nice dude trying to bring attention to things. Whether it's equality or diversity, talking about, sex or ethnicity or whatever, it's all sorts of stuff that he speaks about. And generally speaking, to my mind, he seems just quite sensible with how he looks at stuff, really. But there you go. People don't like it, I suppose, sometimes. Which is fine. It's all about opinion. Just don't be a Bernie Ecclestone in the world. Second story. Now this really is only this is only really loosely, it's barely related to F1, but I thought I'd bring it because it, again, a snapshot of news, and I think we can talk a lot about the Bernd Maylander stuff that's coming up. So it's not that I'm rushing this, it's just that they're lesser stories. But Max Verstappen has been dealt a setback with his new clothing brand, Max 1, because the Belgian Office for Intellectual Property have knocked it back because Nike have said it sounds basically like Air Max, their own trainers, and Belgium and the Belgium intellectual property people agree that basically it sounds the same. So he's trying to bring out a clothing brand called Max 1, and Nike is saying, well, they've got Air Force Ones as well, haven't they? Nike as well. So there's all sorts going on there. Basically, Max Verstappen naming his clothing brand too close to one that exists. So he's been told no. So I don't know what they're going to call it. Maybe they're going to call it Max 2. Don't know. Who knows? Who knows? But there you go. Those of you that are Max Verstappen fans and you wanted some Max 1s, it's not happening yet. You're going to get something else. There you go. Story. Story number 3. Toto Wolff has sort of had a few comments about him exiting Mercedes. Rather, not like he's going now, just what he would do and how they would potentially angle it. And he was speaking to Planet F1, and he said, we've been through all the ups and downs, and there's not a millimetre of doubt. There's so much support from them to get us back on track. We couldn't ask for a better support around the team and everything like that. And he said, I really enjoy being the team leader of this team. I think I can make my contribution. But if one day I come to that conclusion, or if people close to me tell me I'm not contributing, then I'll consider passing the baton to someone else. I wouldn't be ashamed of that. And he said similar in the past, Toto Wolff, and this I don't think is any kind of signal that he's leaving Mercedes. It does become a little bit more complicated for Toto Wolff because he is a shareholder, isn't he, within Mercedes and things like that. So, but I think I get the feeling he's intelligent and self-aware enough to know if his contribution is worthy and whether he should still be in that position. Now, I could be wrong. I don't know the dude. But, you know, he said many times that if he feels or if he's told that he's not contributing in that manner, then he would step back. I actually think it's an intelligent position from Mercedes and from Toto Wolff that when he got involved, he became a shareholder. It can go wrong. It can go wrong in those situations, but I think it worked. I mean, he was basically a banker, wasn't he, before all of this? He's a really intelligent dude, is Toto Wolff. So, yeah, it does become more complicated, but I think he would take sort of a back seat and someone else would be brought in, and then I think it would be up to him whether he sold those shares, and it would probably be Mercedes themselves buying him out, wouldn't it, of the situation, probably, I think. But, I mean, I don't have any advance on that. But there you go. That's a little bit of Toto Wolff speaking again about how he would potentially go. Now, this is what I've been getting to. Now, I did see what Jambo said in the chat, and you know, only a part of these quotes are about the whole Abu Dhabi thing, to be honest. But I'm gonna read at length. I have searched to get as many quotes because I knew that he was being, not out of context, but he was being quoted selectively in major publications because it gets you guys to click, doesn't it? So I thought I would bring you the quotes at length, and this is why I've sort of gone through those littler stories quicker, and then we can have a conversation about them and share your opinions as I'm reading these out. If you've not read the lengthened quotes, because Bernd Maylander, I think it was around 1999 he was brought in, and I think it was the late Charlie Whiting that brought him in to be the safety car driver, and since 1999 he's been the safety car driver for Formula One. So I think, you know, people look at the safety car, and if they know Bernd Maylander, they know him. But I think the guy deserves quite a bit of respect, just like the medical car drivers and stuff like that. You know, in their own right, they are very, very handy drivers indeed. So let's get into the quotes, shall we? So he was involved. He was obviously the safety car driver in Abu Dhabi 21, and there is a bit that goes on to that. I think from these quotes you get where Maylander is coming from. He doesn't directly say much about that situation, but I think with the tone and inference from his quotes, you get where he stands on it. But so this is coming from Auto Motor und Sport, which is a really good German publication. But he starts, I talked to my co-driver, Richard Dacker, about 2 or 3 laps before the accident. So he was more on the side of Verstappen, and I was a bit more on the Mercedes side. It changed during the season. I said it would be nice if someone else became champion. Then during the last races in 2021, I thought it was really great how Hamilton came back after he didn't look like he would. And there were also a few overtaking manoeuvres by Max I didn't find so good. And he says, well, that's just a new generation. Then I thought about how I would rate myself as a racing driver. I found some of the manoeuvres a bit too harsh, but that's how it is. I don't hold grudges there either. And then in Abu Dhabi, it was a done deal for me. The championship went to Lewis and Mercedes together for the 8th time. Even if that would have broken Michael Schumacher's record of 7 titles, that's just the way it is. And then he goes on. He did a great job and everything was actually good. And then suddenly there was a bang and I knew precisely, okay, at this location, this kind of accident, this must be a safety car phase. And then I knew, okay, now there's another situation. And then I thought, good, this is over. That would have happened even without sorting the cars in between. Then Max would have done the overtaking manoeuvre 2 corners later. Then he would have been given the blue flag for overtaking. And he goes on to say that dealing with failure is what makes the sport. And he said that's how challenging sport can be. Afterwards, I took a step back and did some soul searching. In the following days, I hoped that no journalists would call me. I didn't switch off my mobile phone, but I didn't answer some of the numbers because I knew, okay, good, I'll get a question like that. I just wanted to decide for myself, do I like it or not as it was? A few days later, I said no. Everything was actually fine the way it happened. Both teams deserved to be champions. Max was clearly the lucky one in the end, and the team did a great job throughout the year, as did others, of course. But it was that bit of luck that was missing for Lewis, and that's just the way it is in sports. We have to remember that we're talking about sport. I'm a sportsman and can live with such a situation. But of course, I have to find the right way. I don't care who wins on the Sunday. The main thing is we get to see a great sport out there. And the sport has improved steadily over the last few years and has become even better. And that's what appeals to me. In the job, you're part of it. You can't influence anything, but you can change a situation in the blink of an eye with a safety car phase, which brings either luck or bad luck. But safety first, which is a theme I get from him. He seems to be quite a pragmatic, straight talking things. Well, it's not simple as, because it wasn't, was it? And this is the bit. This is kind of the bit that's been quoted everywhere. It was on the last lap when we came in, so I knew I didn't need to return to my parking position, where I usually am. I went straight into the Parc Fermé, then where I typically arrive last under normal conditions, but I arrived first. Then I then hid a little bit on the side of the car, as I usually do, only as the last one to enter Parc Fermé. I got out and went to the hospitality with my helmet on. I went through the hospitality and sat down at the back of the harbour and didn't even see the finish, because I just had to think about everything that had just happened, and it was clear that Max had overtaken. I could hear the noise, that a lot had happened on the track. And he says, and well, that's racing. so I found my way. You can look at the situation or the decision one way or the other. There has already been a lot of discussion about it. I can live with the decision the way it ultimately turned out. For me, both were worthy world champions, only that day Max had more luck, or a lot more luck, on his side. The bottom line is, though, all is well. And that's a theme I get from it, that he's pretty neutral, and that was the end of quote. He's pretty neutral, and I think he takes his responsibility and job really, really seriously. And like he said a few times in those quotes, all is well. And I think that's what he has to take. I think that's what he has to take away from that situation, doesn't he? Like he said, I think anyone would have walked away from it in the same way he did and just had a moment like, what was all that? But at the end of the day, he's just a safety car driver. Now, I've seen some pretty, well, no, actually, I'll just say it, completely ignorant comments on social media about these quotes, where people are accusing him of not being passive in this situation and in fact being culpable, that he is one of the ones responsible for all the stuff that went down, which is just total rubbish, isn't it? He's a safety car driver. He does what he's told and he keeps everyone safe. Now, I do get the feeling that Maylander has been around long enough. Let's say one thing. I feel like he's been around long enough that if the track was unsafe, which I suppose is his responsibility, that he would have said, we can't go racing. The track isn't safe. And really, I think that's the only thing you could say is up to him and his co-driver to make a call on in that moment out on track. The way they are told to the way they are told to apply the rules is nothing to do with him. And let's be clear, the amount of cars he's told to let past, again, is nothing to do with him. He will just position his car so on the circuit other cars can go past, right? He's not the arbiter of the rules. He isn't saying, right, we're going to let 3 past today from nowhere. You know, he's not doing that. And I can see online already that people, honest, some of the comments are pretty horrific. And I think people just need to sort of, again, like, people get really offended over it, when really I think, much like I feel where Maylander's coming from is somewhere where I am, it's more of a sport issue, where really irrelevant of Lewis and Max, it's more to do with the sport and what's just happened. You know, I think a lot of people had a horse in the race, be that Max or Lewis. There was also a lot of us that didn't, and it's a sport thing. You see, the thing is, Jonathan, you're saying blaming him silly. It was all Massey. It just wasn't, was it? It wasn't all Massey at all. Like, it wasn't. And we can go over that ground again, but I don't think it needs to. But I think everyone knows it wasn't all on Massey either. There's a reason Massey made those choices, and it wasn't because he decided he was the god of Formula One. It wasn't Massey either. But John's saying the fact that he's been heavily involved outside his control, but obviously feels that as far as motorsport goes, it was all wrong. He felt guilt when it wasn't his doing. Yeah, and I think he did the right thing, didn't he? Like I say, he's been around long enough that he knew not to answer his phone, basically, and stuff like that, didn't he? After the situation. But I like how a few times in these quotes it comes out that, he's saying the bottom line, all is well, and in another bit, but well, safety first. And I feel like he's the type of individual that just takes what he does very, very seriously. And had there been anything on track, um, um, had there been anything on track, he wouldn't have allowed it to continue, and I think he'd have been listened to as well. If there was debris everywhere, I think he'd have been listened to. So as race director doesn't know all lap cars are passed per the rules means all lap cars. Jonathan, look, okay. Really, really quickly, right. Just so we're aware, Massey has a boss. Those bosses have bosses. Those bosses have bosses. And everyone involved also likes money. There is Netflix. There is TV audience. This is the closest championship between two different teams we've had in years. Michael Massey isn't singularly be to blame. There are probably at least 10 people which are actually implicated in it. Massey didn't make that choice all on his own. He just didn't. He just didn't make that choice. It's a very convenient thing to say one guy did it, but he didn't. He was under pressure. He was under massive, massive pressure. And I'm not defending him because he should have been stronger and said no, but even so, he was under pressure to make that happen. And I think it's a bit painful people still think it was one guy, to be quite honest. Imagine that. Now, with the greatest respect in the world, Michael Massey is not Charlie Whiting. Charlie Whiting would have put his middle finger up to anyone that was trying to pressure him into making a different decision. But Michael Massey isn't Charlie Whiting. So, but there we go. It's interesting as well how he also spoke. I can't find the quotes directly here, but this was what I wanted. That was what I wanted to bring out mainly. But he was talking about how certain drivers do certain things behind the safety car. Like he was saying how Lewis Hamilton always sits in his blind spot. You can never see where Lewis Hamilton is. He just sits in his blind spot really, really out of the way. So he don't know where he is. What do you mean, Mario? What do you mean, where can you get an update? Don't know what to say to you. But there we are, really. That is it. I knew somehow it would... pragmatic thought processes from him without saying he's essentially, I've moved on, so should everyone else, and we should enjoy the sport and competitiveness that the drivers bring. Exactly, Nick. Exactly. And I mainly wanted to bring these quotes because I thought they were intelligent and well thought out. Well, I don't know why. No, I don't personally think he was involved. I don't think he was involved. I think you're talking more. If he was the guy at the time, I can't remember if he was, but Stefano Domenicali, that type of person involved. Jean Todt, I don't think he was involved. I think you're talking FIA. I think you want to be looking at the commercial rights holders more. So Liberty Media, those types of people, where the money is. I don't think Jean Todt gave a flying shite about it, quite honestly. Maylander is a bit of a legend, 700 plus laps in the lead. And that's the reason why I wanted to bring all of the quote there. Well, a big chunk of the quote, because it just struck me as really intelligent, well thought out discourse, rather than, something controversial. Like he says, he's quite honest. And he about Max's manoeuvres, it's how I feel about them. Some of them were too harsh and things like that. And he just says, well, it's a new generation. He respects that. And he talks quite at length, and he's just clearly an intelligent dude. And this is the thing: he's been around the sport that long. You have to listen, don't you? Yeah, another part of it was that he remembers the 2011 Canada race because he led more than 50% of it. And he goes on to say he led more than 50% of it. He didn't get a trophy, but everyone went home safe. I think he just takes it very, very seriously, his responsibility. It's not his place to judge other drivers or what the sport's particularly doing. He just really cares that everyone gets to go home safe. You need to be here on time, Mario, or go back and watch, mate. Go back and watch, pal. But there we are. That is today's news from TSK F1. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. I'm going to be live on Twitch at Pit Lanes in the next half hour or so. Thank you so much for joining me. It's not too late to hit the like on the stream or subscribe down below, and I will be live at 9 o'clock in the morning with more news. Thanks so much for joining me, guys, and I will see you very soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.